U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today about the escalating tensions with Russia. While in Kiev, he spoke with officials about next steps ahead of his meeting Friday with Russia's foreign minister. He also called on Russia to take the diplomatic and peaceful path.
Across all of our engagements, we have made clear the clear preference for finding a diplomatic resolution.
And for more, I'd like to bring in Timothy Frye. He is a Marshall D. Shulman Professor of Post-Soviet Foreign Policy at Columbia University. He is also the author of Weak Strongman: The Limits of Power in Putin's Russia. Professor Frye, welcome. Great to have you with us. So we know part of Secretary Blinken's visit to Kiev is obviously reassurance that the U.S. supports Ukraine. What exactly have we promised Ukraine so far? And can you remind our viewers why Ukraine is so important to the U.S.?
So the U.S. has delivered about $2.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine since 2014, and that's ramped up in the last year. It's mostly small arms, patrol boats, some defensive weapons against tanks. So there is some military component as part of U.S. aid to Ukraine. It hasn't changed the military balance. Russia is by far the military power in the region. But also importantly, what the U.S. has promised to Ukraine is that they will maintain the open door policy, in which allows countries to, which allows NATO to choose which countries will become its members. In 2008, if you remember, NATO promised that at some point in the future, Ukraine would become a member of NATO, kept a very much an open-ended promise. Nobody sees that as likely to happen, but the U.S. is very strongly committed, and its NATO allies have also stated this case, that this principle is something that they won't negotiate with Russia, that NATO itself will decide which countries will become members of NATO, and that third parties like Russia should not have the power to veto decisions made by NATO.
And remind us why Ukraine is so important to the U.S. Is it, you know, in the sort of global geopolitical order, why are we so invested?
The first thing to say is that Ukraine matters a lot more for Russia than for the United States, given geography and its history. That said, Ukraine is an important part of the European security architecture, and this promise that countries should be able to join NATO is important to U.S. foreign policy, in that it keeps the threat of a country joining NATO as a possible tool to use against Russia. So countries like Finland and Sweden, for example, who are not NATO members, value this pledge. Also, the principle that countries should not use military coercion to achieve political ends and change borders, either de facto or de jure, is an important component of the European security architecture. Right. And should Russia succeed in using military force to change borders in Ukraine, that could put the security architecture at risk.
Right. It's a bigger argument than just, Ukraine versus Russia there. OK, so let's look at the immediate situation right now. Russia has troops along Ukraine's border in Belarus in a so-called joint exercise. This is in addition to the estimated 100,000 troops in Crimea. Germany's foreign minister has also warned Russia, so it's not just us, right, that further military escalation would result in, quote, strategic actions. What does that mean exactly, and what kind of involvement is the U.S. and its allies preparing for?
Well, NATO as an organization has ruled out sending troops to Ukraine. That is not an option that's currently on the table. But massive sanctions are certainly in order. And in reference to Germany, the key issue is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. This is a gas pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany, and it's almost ready to go online. There's one last stage of certification that the German government needs to do before the gas can start to flow. And should Germany decide that they don't want to certify this project and that it won't go forward, that would be a blow to Russia's reputation as a reliable supplier of energy, and that it would also hit Russia's coffers as well, as gas exports to Europe are an important source of revenue for Russia.
Professor Timothy Frye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.